For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome. In early September 2022, India will join a select group of nations who have the capability of designing, developing and manufacturing an aircraft carrier, a very complex war machine that has ever been built in the history of conflict and wars. INS Vikrant, which will be India's first indigenously designed aircraft carrier, will be commissioned that day by Prime Minister Modi in Cochin, is what the expectation is. I'm going to talk about that this week on Ask Nitin. I'm Nitin Gokhale. So what is INS Vikrant? It's an indigenously designed, developed and manufactured aircraft carrier, the first of its kind for Indian Navy, built by Cochin Shipyard Limited, which is a civilian shipyard, not a military shipyard like say the Mazgaon Docks or the Hindustan Shipyards Limited or the GRAC, which is the Garden Reach shipbuilders. All those are military shipyards which build ships, warships and even submarines. But for the first time, a civilian shipyard like Cochin Shipyard has built India's first indigenously designed aircraft carrier, to be named, to be christened as INS Vikrant. On 2nd of September, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Cochin, is what the Navy is expecting. He will formally commission the 37,500 ton aircraft carrier into the Indian Navy. With this, Indian Navy would have acquired the second aircraft carrier to operate on its shores as well as very distant from its shores when it comes to operations of the Navy. INS Vikramaditya, which is originally a Russian-built aircraft carrier, Admiral Gorshkov, is already in service with the Indian Navy, but INS Vikrant will join the service on 2nd of September. Now, there are certain unique features about this ship. We have done a program last year on 14th of August 2021. We had made a special program for INS Vikrant, where I had an occasion to sail on one of its sea trials when it was sailing out of the Cochin harbour. And I was on board for 4-5 hours to understand how this ship is built, what are its unique features and what it brings to the table when it comes to the capabilities of the Indian Navy. So here it is. This ship has cost approximately 23,000 crores. Has been in the making for almost 12 years, starting 2009-10, and now finally in 2022 it is being commissioned. It is, the weight, as I mentioned, is about 37,500 tons. The displacement, as they call it, for the ships and aircraft carriers. It is 18-story tall, including its superstructure, nearly 60 meters. So you can imagine how big and how tall this ship is. When you go on the ship, you don't realize it, but when you see it from a distance, it is a really large ship. It is 262 meters long. It can travel 7,500 nautical miles without being refueled once it has left the harbour or once it has left its base. It has that capability because it's got turbine engines and of course the capacity to hold that much fuel and food for its crew, which numbers, the maximum number it can hold on the ship is 1,700 officers and men. And of course, even women, in keeping with the new trend in the Indian Navy, that women will be also commissioned as well as allowed to join as sailors in the Indian Navy. The ship is designed to have separate facilities for men and women. So it's a modern ship in that sense, because the earlier ships didn't have that kind of facilities for men and women separately. But more importantly, When fully operational, this ship or this aircraft carrier can hold and operate 30 aircraft on board simultaneously. It can park 30 aircraft and also these aircraft can operate. Which aircraft it will operate is something that the Navy and the government has to decide. There is a competition between the Boeing's FA-18, Rafale's naval version, as well as the MiG-29K, which is already there on the INS Vikrant, and maybe, who knows, the LCA Navy, which is with the HAL and the Aeronautical Development Agency, but hasn't completed its full trial or full testing. We don't know which aircraft will embark on the ship, but more than anything else, it's a moment of pride for the entire country. Its engineers, designers, the Indian defense companies, ancillary industries, MSMEs, the entire ecosystem has come together to manufacture, to design, develop and manufacture India's first indigenously developed aircraft carrier. What will it bring to the table as far as Indian Navy's capabilities are concerned? Well, an aircraft carrier projects power deep into the sea and much beyond, because aircraft carriers can go on high seas and the aircraft embarked on those aircraft carriers can then project power, project influence and also target adversaries' assets if they are at a distance from the Indian shores. Once operational, fully operational, the two aircraft carriers will give India or in the Indian Navy the capability to keep a full watch and influence the outcome, influence the battle, as well as influence the projection of power from India in the Indian Ocean region to begin with. You remember, Indian Ocean region is India's backyard, India's own region of influence or a zone of influence, and therefore two aircraft carriers are always better than one, certainly. There is, of course, this weight that the Navy will have to do before it gets the aircraft to operate from INS Vikrant. But even without the aircraft, it's a great achievement, it's a big achievement. Only other countries which can build aircraft carriers or have built aircraft carriers of a similar weight and class are the United States, the UK, France and Russia. The Chinese are, of course, trying to also imitate other countries. They already have one aircraft carrier, the other is in the making, but they are still at a nascent stage. India has operated aircraft carriers for a long time, since the 60s. In fact, one aircraft carrier played a major part in the 1971 operations. That was named INS Vikrant, and therefore the name INS Vikrant for this new aircraft carrier, the new ship that the Indian Navy will be getting in the early week of September, the first week of September, maybe on the 2nd of September when the Prime Minister commissions it. So, aircraft carriers are important, although there are now debates around the efficacy and the effectiveness of aircraft carriers in modern naval battles. But at the moment, India has decided to go with IAC-1, which is the indigenous aircraft carrier 1, which will turn into INS Vikrant in September. Whether India will build IAC-2 is still something that the government has to decide, because aircraft carriers cost money. Like any other ship, they are capital intensive, and given the financial condition and the lack of funds or the shortage of funds for defense modernization, that call is yet to be taken. Nevertheless, it's a moment of pride, as I said. So, therefore, I wanted to sort of flag this development, which we should all be proud about. And ahead of the commissioning on 2nd of September, this program is coming to you on Saturday, as it usually does. That's all I had to say, really, as part of my opening remarks in Ask Nitin. I certainly have benefited from many people who ask different questions, who also have some suggestions and comments on the program. So, like every week, we have 2 or 3 people joining on the program. They are joining me live on the video, and I will take those questions one by one. But for the moment, from me on INS Vikrant, that's all I had to share. You will read and listen and view many such programs from us, not just on INS Vikrant, but on the armed forces in the coming weeks. For the moment, I'm going to say goodbye before I take the questions from my viewers who have joined from different places. So let's have the first question, if we can have, and the first questioner.
Good afternoon,
Yes.
sir. My name is Manjula Venkatesh. I'm from Delhi. I'm a housewife, and above all, I'm a proud Indian. Many congratulations for having India's first indigenous aircraft carrier, and very proud to hear this. I just want to know, a few days back, we had a news that some Chinese ship has been docked for around 6 days in the in the Sri Lankan port. So when we are having INS Vikrant, INS Vikramaditya, how are these aircraft carriers providing us or ensuring our maritime security?
Yes, I think good question. You brought in the latest development. The Chinese are trying to come into the Indian Ocean, India's backyard, increasingly with regular frequency. And one of the things that they're doing is to go to the neighboring countries, that Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and that ship, the survey ship, the so-called survey ship, which is actually a surveillance ship, had come to Hambantota, had docked there, and India had expressed its concern. India had said that it is not acceptable, although the Sri Lankans, after dilly-dallying, did give them permission. But that notwithstanding, let me tell you that the aircraft carriers, as I mentioned briefly during my opening remarks, bring in a muscle to the Navy that no other platform can bring in. The very fact that such a large aircraft carrier goes into the ocean, into the high seas, and from there the fighter aircrafts are launched, which can go further, deeper into territories that normally one would take a long time to reach from the shore if you have taken off from there. And the aircraft carriers don't move alone. They move with a gaggle of ships and the other platforms when they move out. It's called a carrier battle group. So it projects influence, it projects power, it projects muscle flexing by a country, and therefore both INS Vikramaditya, which is fully operational, and INS Vikrant, when it gets fully operational, will give India that ability to project its influence, its power, its reach into the Indian Ocean, going right up to the shores of Africa, Eastern Africa, and if need be, into the Malacca Straits or Southern Indian Ocean. That's what the aircraft carriers bring to the table. I hope I have answered your question.
Very much, sir. Very much. So, just now you said that this INS Vikrant was launched in around 2013 August. And then why so much of delay of like today around 9 years later it is being commissioned? Why so much delay?
Well, we might think there is a delay, but let me tell you, it's a complex platform to build. And when you're building it from scratch with your own technology, nearly 76% of the ship is indigenously designed and developed and manufactured. The hull is based on steel provided by Indian steel companies, one of the PSUs. It had to be specially forged. The other equipment there where our defense companies are not yet that experienced, and the engineers in the Cochin shipyard, the naval designers, were doing it for the first time. Remember, as I mentioned, only 4 or 5 countries have this capability. So therefore, this long gestation period. Maybe the next aircraft carrier, whenever it is sanctioned and built, will take maybe half the time or 3/4 of the time that it is taken for INS Vikrant to be built. So first attempt is always a longer duration, and that's why the long duration it has taken. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have our next questioner or next viewer who wants to ask a question.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Avantika Yadav from Delhi, pursuing journalism in Delhi University Kamran Nehru College. I have just one question. It was like when we compare with China developing heavy displacement aircraft carriers and the Indian Navy is looking for 65 tons of aircraft carriers. Why the stakeholders at the government and defense don't look into it?
If you can repeat that question, please. You said 65,000 tons, or what was the question exactly?
Aircraft carrier are why the stakeholder at the government and defense don't look into it.
Well, the government does look into it. I think you've got some misunderstanding. The government does look into it. It takes time to take a decision of that magnitude, to build an aircraft carrier, to sink in so much money, to provide so much money for building an aircraft carrier. That takes some time, and therefore we have to give it some time to the decision makers to take some kind of a concrete decision. Remember, in China, the system is different. There, they don't have a government system or a governance structure which needs too many people, stakeholders to be on board. In India, we are a democratic country. There are checks and balances. There are considerations of how much funds to use for what, and therefore it takes time as far as decision making is concerned. And the larger the aircraft carrier tonnage, the more funds will have to be earmarked for it, and that may not be possible always for governments to guarantee that kind of funds going forward. And therefore, I would say that there is a difference between the time taken by the Chinese in deciding what they do or executing what they want to do and what we do in India. So it's a question of two different structures, two different systems. It's nothing to do with any reluctance from the government's part or government's reluctance not to take a decision. I hope I have answered your question.
Sir, I have one question more. Why Vikrant called as Vikrant? Like, what's the meaning of Vikrant?
Well, Vikrant is something is in our mythology, and we had an INS Vikrant in the 1971 war that was decommissioned many years ago. And because we have had aircraft carriers starting with the name V or the alphabet V, so we had INS Vikrant, then we had INS Virat, then we have INS Vikramaditya, and now again the old INS Vikrant's name is being used. Maybe the next aircraft carrier will use the name INS Virat again, because INS Virat has been decommissioned some years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago. That's the way the decisions are taken. There is a committee to decide on what name to use, what to do, and like all these names are of warriors, warrior kings in India's glorious past, and therefore these names are used for ships of the size of the aircraft carrier.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, my pleasure. So one of our Twitter followers has asked this question in written form, and he asked, why don't we have jet blast deflectors? Well, the aircraft carrier that we operate or we are going to operate has a different technology, and that is because jet blast deflectors are used in aircraft carriers that have short runways. As I mentioned, this INS Vikrant is 262 meters long. It has a ski jump where 14 degrees incline is given for the aircraft to first start taxiing, then gathering speed, and then jumping or sort of catapulting or launching from the incline or the slope that is there, which gives it the necessary push to get into the air. Therefore, even while arresting it or while recovering the aircraft, when it comes back on the aircraft carrier, you still have enough space, enough runway, long runway for the aircraft to get recovered on the aircraft carrier. Therefore, there are no jet blast deflectors on the Indian aircraft carrier, that is INS Vikrant. We've had many viewers expressing their interest in joining, but the timing perhaps is not right, so we'll have to rethink on how we record and when we record, and we give you a little more time to think about questions. But like every week, we will come back with more informative sessions, more topics that are of immediate interest, and this time we thought INS Vikrant is being commissioned on 2nd of September, and therefore this will be of some interest to our viewers, and that's why this program. For the moment, I'm going to say goodbye, but don't forget to ask your friends, family, acquaintances to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of you are aware we were hacked, our YouTube channel was hacked, but we are back in action with more protection and more vigor. These attacks don't really deter us. If anybody thought that we will shut shop, that is not going to happen. So do keep sending the questions, feedback. You know where to write the feedback on the comment section. And of course, subscribe to our handles, social media handles on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And of course, we will then engage with you more and more as you shoot your questions, you ask your queries. And of course, we send you as much information your way as possible. For the time being, it's goodbye.